on the notion that actually Hollywood filmmakers are making a lot of films depicting an RBE-like society as the moral and altruistic orientation. And even further than this, the portrayal of a hostile and greed-orientated society posing a threat to this altruistic society, with the eventual outcome of good prevailing over evil, as it were. Such a film would be Avatar. Now this film is incredibly interesting, since the Na'vi are blatantly portrayed as the protagonists and the humans as the antagonists. The symmetry between the human exploitation and killing of the Na'vi and, say, the American treatment of the Middle East is blatantly obvious. However, this is a Hollywood film, so therefore we are groomed into being consumed by the special effects and extravagant violence than truly absorbing the moral and philosophical message of the film. Maybe we are allowed to see it for a fleeting moment, and then as we're exiting the cinema, it's back to reality and back to the values of, oh, life doesn't work like that. While on the subject of Avatar, there is one video by Stefan Molyneux called The True Meaning of Avatar. It's a very, very, very insightful look into the film's philosophical and metaphorical elements. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that one. But with all this in mind, I would say that I've shifted my stance on this issue to a degree. I'm starting to think that Hollywood likes to parade these morality tales in front of us in the comfort of knowing that we won't collectively learn from them, dangling the answer to the moral questions in plain sight while knowing that we've been habitated to the point of being completely blind to it. It's an interesting testament to how deluded and duped we've allowed ourselves to become, but thanks to the media and our education. Tell you another example I've found for a similar moral tale is the 1998 Pixar film A Bug's Life. I mean, come on, people. This film has the blatant plotline of a subdued and exploited collective rising up against a minority ruling elite. And what kind of lasting impression are we left with? Well, for those of us who are willing to think, we're left with the reinforcement that the ruled class has to either overpower or outgrow the need for the ruling class in order for freedom to be a reality. Unfortunately for the majority of its viewers, it's like, yeah, it was a nice film, right, back to the grindstone. Anyway, question 5. Has Jacques Fresco's essay been peer-reviewed? Interesting question. To answer it quickly, I would say that no, I haven't come across any information which shows that any of Jacques' material has been peer-reviewed. However, it's not as simple as that. Considering that in terms of essays, the process of peer review is used to assess the potential for publication, I'm not actually sure if TVP are actively seeking the route of publications per se. But that aside, are there any actual peers in the field of social engineering in the academic world that are able and willing to provide an objective peer review of the Venus Project? This is actually an earnest question, because if such an individual exists, then it would be awesome if we could get hold of such a person to actually pursue the effort of reviewing the train of thought. But having said that, how do you peer review a train of thought? Because here's the crux of the matter. Not only would any attempt at peer review have to include the many essays and lectures that Jacques has done, but also the designs and blueprints he's made, the inventions he's developed, not to mention the logic and optimal nature of the value system that is advocated. So you see, the task of peer reviewing this is a lot more complex than we originally assumed. in the context of a non-academic process of peer review, the review of the physical infrastructure that the Venus Project intends to develop can only be conducted once it has been funded, built and tested. And as we know, none of this infrastructure exists yet. You can thank the constrictions of the monetary system for that. Anyway, question 6. You said before about technological unemployment where machines take over jobs, but I would argue that automation actually creates jobs as well. For example, someone's got to look after and repair the machines, so the two cancel each other out. Okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from here. It's actually a defense that's often toted about by those who haven't yet considered the true impact of technological unemployment. But tell you what, I'll go through a specific example to illustrate this. Say, for example, you have a company which distributes and or maintains self-service checkout machines for supermarket stores, right? Obviously, we can initially tell that on a superficial level that the automating of those checkout desks may have created new jobs because of those maintaining them. However, the fruits and benefits of that automation doesn't stop there. Not only will there be an incentive to install maybe at least 2 of those self-checkouts in that particular store, but this supermarket will probably not be your only customer. There may be other supermarkets in the area which may call upon your services. Now, considering you're a business, the motivation is to maximize profits, right? So you will not consider a large workforce a priority. That would mean more people to pay, right? In addition to this, there will be more of a motivation to take on more of a workload to maximize profits even more. Now, right now we can recognize the following 4 points. 1. Automation raises the efficiency and profits of your customer's business. Number 2. Automation raises the profits of your own business. Number 3. Maximizing on the workload benefits your profits. And 4. Minimizing on the workforce lowers the outgoings. Okay, what does this all spell for overall employment numbers? Does it spell an increase or a decrease? You see, when you apply the inherent mechanisms of the profit motive to how business operates, you will notice that industry simply cannot ignore the wonderful innovation of technological automation. There's only a certain amount of jobs, and that number is dwindling. Tell you what, here's another example of technological unemployment which is far outstripping the human workforce. Recently I heard about the moves to cut the armed forces here in the UK. Have you guys heard about it? Why do you think that they're cutting down on the amount of soldiers employed? In my view, there's 2 chief reasons. Number 1, to cut down on monetary considerations, and number 2, to make way for more automation. And how can we automate warfare, you may ask? Well, I assume by now you've heard of drone warfare, right? Unmanned bomb aircraft. One soldier sat at a computer console controlling an unmanned drone bomber aircraft. Sometimes, as I've heard, they actually use Xbox controllers to operate the drones. Now, how much destruction that a predator drone can unleash can be matched by human ground forces? In other words, how many soldiers does it take to create the amount of destruction a remote-controlled bomber plane can? I would urge anyone listening to have a think about whether automation creates as many jobs as it eradicates. Also, just as a side note, I feel I should point out the developments considering the downgrading of the British Armed Forces right now. Essentially, the troops are being diminished from roles such as foreign conflict and being concentrated in domestic applications such as the territorial army. Right? Now, as this may seem on the surface a simple restructuring of our military, it may also, without appearing as a conspiracy theorist here, be indicative of the drive to minimize manpower in long-range conflict, because drone warfare can take care of that stuff, and instead concentrate a lower quantity of manpower cracking down on domestic conflict should it occur. I know some people could already see this as a means to bring in more militaristic capabilities to our own police forces by incorporating actual soldiers into assisting the police. I mean, just a humorous note, imagine the idea that in any city the notion of incurring the wrath of the army down on you, just like in GTA, could be a reality. But speaking seriously, does this sound a bit, I don't know, paramilitary to you? Because of course, in order for a police state to have an adequate cohesion, it would need solid and speedy military support. Now, just so you know, I'm not claiming to be a speaker against this New World Order notion of a police state. However, there is a lot of scary information out there which is implying a lot of these fears. I mean, I'm just saying. In fact, I'm kind of reminded of the short video on YouTube. It's called "Imagine if London was occupied by Israel." Very interesting and possibly scary look into what could be coming down the pipeline if we're not careful, But anyway, on to my last question here. Question 7. What is your theory on chemtrails? I would say straight off the bat that I don't really have any specific theory or opinion on chemtrails because, well, besides an outside analysis of the concept, to be completely honest, I haven't really done all that much research on it actually. I mean, I can see how concerned a lot of people are about it. However, judging on one of the theories or suppositions I've heard about them, I wouldn't really agree that it's some depopulation thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't know. But tell you what, I'll go on what incomplete information I already have, and maybe someone can contact me and show me where I'm incorrect, maybe. But essentially what I've heard is that we're being sprayed with something debilitating, like aluminium vapors and a collection of other poisonous stuff. That there's a documentary that I've been meaning to get around to watching. It's called "What on Earth Are They Spraying?" So I suppose maybe after I watch that and do some research, maybe my answer on this would be completely different. I don't know. But anyway, supposedly these things are being sprayed on us to make us infertile and kill us as part of the New World Order depopulation plan to reduce the global population by some high percentage. I say some high percentage because you probably won't find two sources that agree on the exact same figure. Even Alex Jones from time to time, I've heard him go from, I think, 85% to 92% or something similar. So it seems to me like there's a lot of either conflicting information or this information is constantly changing. But anyway, not to keep going on tangents, this is supposedly part of this whole depopulation thing, and I would say that there's actually no need to actively poison us to cause global depopulation. I can understand if it's to make us ill because unhealthy people are more dependent on the healthcare system, thus causing more circulation of currency for pharmaceutical companies and procedures, blah blah blah. I can understand if it's to make us unhealthy, but there's no need to kill us. Okay? Do you know what could cause the exact same thing for global depopulation? Doing nothing to change the system that we currently live in. Just let it carry on as it is. Yeah. As we in TZM say all the time, we live in an anti-economic paradigm. It's built upon the fantasy of infinite growth and infinite consumption on a finite planet. Thus, you don't need to actively poison and kill off the population. The very gravitation of what this system will turn into and what will